Retro Future.
Greetings, this is Bunsard Bokel of Radio Retro Future, author and creator of the Association of Ishtar, both here on YouTube and in the various bookstores. And it has been a while since I posted a video, and I am working on various video scripts, art for new lore videos on the world of Atlas. But in the meantime, we've mostly been working on our steampunk RPG, Nightwatch, and with the prototype now done, or at least I should say the draft is done. Next up is the core rulebook, and oh dear, there is still so much to do, but I am very proud on how the game is turning out so far. I'm listening in to various playtests of people, and I'm very happy to see what people are doing with the rules, and the feedback of GMs also has been very positive. So that's what I want to talk about, like what is my vision for steampunk RPGs, and I also want to briefly talk about some of the mechanics, something that I want for most of my RPGs that I enjoy so far. But first, I will hope, of course, that you will support the RPG when we go live on Kickstarter. We might postpone it by a few weeks, we'll have to see. We have not yet made a decision on that. But you can go to the link down below under the video and make a reservation. And if you make a reservation, you'll gain something extra. And I will talk briefly on what that will be, which is the card expansions for our system. And yes, for the people who are interested in reading our books, those too will be on the Kickstarter. But one last thing is, if you are curious to the prototype version, you can already play the game online on our Discord. Follow the link there. We already have someone organizing gameplays. If you want to GM yourself, that is also possible, and let us know, and maybe we can arrange a proper logistical system for that on the Discord, so people can just report to you and ask to play. With that, again, links will be in the description. Let's talk about Nightwatch. And one of the things that I really wanted, one of the core principles of the game that I wanted to make, was something that, well, first of all, I want to play, which means I want a game that respects my time. And also the other thing was that I really want this to be an actual steampunk game. And let's start with the last one, because when I was doing research on the game, I went over various steampunk RPGs, and I did not like any of them. Some of them were Gaslamp, but over 90% of them were fantasy with a steampunk skin. Like, you had all these races, they were all in fantasy worlds, and it just happens to have like this Victorian aesthetic basically. But everything else, the tropes, were all fantasy. And that is something I talked about before, so I will not get into it too much here. But what does that matter, you might ask? Well, it matters a lot. And I'm trying to make something of a Gaslamp fantasy spin-off for both the games and the books, so it's not like I've not dabbled in this myself, and it's very difficult to make my setting Gaslamp without it becoming like extremely complicated, very hard to get into, which is overall my problem that I have with a lot of fantasy. It just stops being the Association of Ishtar if I'm not careful. I shared my ideas that I have for the Gaslamp spin-off. I shared it with both readers and players, and all of them had the same concern. And this concern is what I call the Masquerade problem. And this is a reference to Vampire the Masquerade, in which it's this setting which is the real world, except that it is supposed to be like vampires and all those things exist, but they are extremely rare. Even if you live in that world, the chance that you'll actually meet a vampire or werewolf or anything like that is extremely small. This is what the whole Masquerade references to, that the vampires try to be hidden from society. They hide everything. But the problem is that once you start playing Vampire the Masquerade, everywhere you go there are vampires. And of course, that's how storytelling structure works, but that's kind of the issue in settings like World of Darkness. They're supposed to be extremely rare, and yet they're everywhere, and that's the problem with the Gaslamp fantasy elements that I have in mind. So the solution for that will be that we have the core rulebook, which will be the steampunk setting, and then the Gaslamp fantasy thing will be the Gaslamp elements. So players understand there is a clear distinction to be made there. And we'll see, of course, if there's gonna be demand for it. But yeah, the plans are there, and it's been a valuable experience for me, both as a writer and creator, on making that distinction. And what happens when you start mixing the two, it just stops being steampunk. It just goes, because it overwhelms just everything. What about the gameplay? Now, first of all, like I said, I wanted to have a game that respects my time, and by that I mean I wanted to keep it accessible. With that I don't mean like make it casual for the normies. No, with that you get the extensive lore, very in-depth item descriptions and all that stuff. Like the rules, the complexity is really in the equipment, and we'll explain that a little later. But the thing is, when it comes to the rules themselves, I want to be able to sit down and just start playing like a board game. So I used a lot of board game-esque mechanics, especially when it comes to the dice. That also means what I love about complex board games is that somehow the complexity does not come from the dice rolls, but it comes from how they combine the core of the system with all the various other elements. So it always, every rule just goes back to the same underlying foundation of the card system or the dice system. And that also meant that I took out any bonuses on dice rolls. Like in D&D and stuff, you've got like derived stats, and you've got like, when you have skills, you get like bonuses from this skill and that feat and that. I removed all of that. There are, with the exception of armor, there are no negative or positive bonuses on your dice rolls. What you roll on the dice, that is it. And this is also why I used the Savage World system as a foundation, because the stats of Savage World are simply the dice. Your might is a D8, your hardiness is a D6, that's it. That's the die you roll. There's a caveat when it comes to the skill rolls. I will not go into that, I'll explain that in a separate video, but like I managed to fit everything on a bookmark, on one side of a bookmark. That's the entire foundation of the game. So it's great for GMs, because when you're a GM, you can just pick a guy, even somebody who has no experience playing role-playing games whatsoever. You can sit that person down and basically, as the puppet master, as they're called in this game, just tell them this is your target number. So basically, the puppet master calculates everything, and he just tells the player, you know, this is your target number. That's it. You know, it's great, because you don't have to explain to players, like, oh, this is your derived stat, this is your reflex save, this is your will save. None of that. Basically, you've got 6 traits, and that's it. Of course, you've also got hit points and all that stuff. But really, when it comes down to the dice rolls, almost board game mechanics. And I love it, and that also makes it easier for expanding the universe, and where I want to hope to take the game in a future direction. But when it comes to developing games and also writing books, because I have not in these past 3 months been able to barely write anything. I wrote some short stories for the role-playing book. Everything else was dedicated to the role-playing mechanics. But now we have the foundation, now we have the prototype. I hope this will come down. Like, there are some things that we want to work on, and like I said, feedback from GMs has been amazing. But like I said, do the players not have to do anything? Well, yes, there is something that they need to do. And again, the complexity comes into the equipment of the weapons. But we wanted to have all weapons to have like a unique feel to them. So there's double-barreled weapons have a particular element. Bolt-action rifles have a particular element. Combination weapons, we've included those, so those have a particular element. We're still looking into how far we are gonna go with regular ammo types, because we do have various ammo sizes. We've got compact, medium, and large, essentially. So we're still looking into, like, are we gonna give those particular properties? Because at one side I want to, at the other side I also have lots of ideas for special ammo. And that's very important, because the complexity again is not in the dice rolls. The complexity is really in the missions themselves and what we have in mind for future campaigns and all that stuff, where players actually have to investigate. The whole idea about the Association of Ishtar is to explore interesting ideas. This is why all the short stories are written as investigations, as files, and we want to bring that into the game. So the idea is really that the associates need to investigate their targets. Like, there is this problem in the city, they need to figure out who their opponents are, and if they need to fight them, they need to know what their strengths and powers are, so they can equip themselves properly. I mean, if it turns out that the enemy has like an armored vehicle, they need to bring armored anti-armor rounds. Otherwise, they're screwed, right? I mean, currently the armored vehicles that we've included can be taken out without armor piercing, but that's really the limit. It's gonna be very difficult, and combat is lethal in this game. Once your opponents start to have an opportunity to start shooting, you're pretty screwed. That's something that we get, and that's also what I wanted. I wanted combat to matter, and I wanted combat to be lethal, so skills like the medicine skill and stuff like that are also very valuable. So surgeon is something that you want to have on your team. Making sure that you know what you're up against are very important. Of course, when you start the game, I suggest you run just some typical missions. Kind of do it like D&D, you know, oh, you come across some fogs, you know, bang, bang, you're done. If you are not using your skills to get around that topic, which brings us to the skills, which I'm actually very proud of. So again, skills do not provide bonuses. I removed all of that. They can lower the difficulty levels of challenges. That's basically how we're going about it. Instead, every point you invest in a skill, the skills are kind of like categories, and investing points into those categories will unlock various perks. And they are very focused on role-playing, you know, that really adds something to a scene. That's something that I focused on. And then there are these more abstract skills, like under the security skill, we have janitor and firefighter. Basically, they allow you to do anything that's related to those jobs. So if you're a firefighter, you know how to handle safety, fire, or smoke-filled zone. But those are more abstract, and those are more open to interpretation and what the PM allows you to do with them. I prefer it that way, and I've seen people do a lot of fun things with that. Security also has the ability of crowd control, which allows you to manage small groups of people. Now, when you think, okay, well, you can manage small groups of people for security purposes, that type of stuff. But before I knew it, some guy was making this terrorist character that was treating these people as hostages, and it was very fun to see how people used their interpretations of those skills to do such unique things with them. And it's very fun also in the gameplay to use skills in ways that I did not foresee, but because they are specific enough in what they do, people are like, oh, I can do this with this, and oh, I can do that with this. So it was very awesome to listen into those games and see people use these skills in ways I did not even imagine. And one of my problems with a lot of D&D skills, like they're so abstract, like when is something sneak, when is something lockpicking, you know, when is something subterfuge. And here we made the perks specific enough, but also abstract enough, and finding that nice balance. And you know, and also skills that were like very specific, especially in the pilot category. I included something like getaway driver. You know, it allows you to drive away faster because cars have acceleration in this game. And it was like, you know, who's gonna pick that? But I wanted it to be there, you know, because, you know, getaway driver, just for that idea. People picked that skill. Just in the first game, people had already picked the skill getaway driver. And it was like, okay, people do want those skills in the game. And it's like, okay. So, because I was hesitant if I should even include them in the prototype, but I did. And yeah, people were having fun of them already. So, yeah, I'm very happy with that. And finally, there was also things, again, for the movie moment actions. One of the things that goes with most, if you play a cosmic horror themed game, usually the boss monsters themselves, when it comes to stats, are not that impressive. However, what they do is they break the players down indirectly. So you've got your direct attacks that are more powerful than average. But the real power they have is the indirect stuff. Like every turn you have to make a test or else. And the test becomes harder every other turn. And that is what we also included. So there's going to be an enemy called Kludde, which is inspired by Dutch folklore. And he's, you know, statistically not that impressive. Not even for Night Watch, it has very impressive stats. But the reason for that is because he'll kill you indirectly. We want to have like environments, like the players go through toxic fog, stuff like that. That's what we want to focus on. So you have to prepare, you have to wear proper hazmat suits, you have to, you know, get your proper ammo. Maybe you cannot use incendiary ammo, otherwise the stuff will ignite. So there's all this stuff that we want to include, so people actually have to use their research skill, they have to use their analytical skills. And of course there are a lot of research skills that just give you knowledge. That's all they do. However, that's the knowledge you need to survive, or at least find a solution in order to survive, I should say. And of course, medicine are going to be very important, because creatures like Clure, again, its attacks are indirect. It breaks down people's psychology, it makes people, and this is, by the way, from real folklore, it robs people of the will to live. They just lose all their survival instinct, and they'll just stop doing whatever they were doing. And that is what will happen if you're not careful with Clure, that your character will just lose the will to do anything, and just stands there as it is attacked by this giant ant/werewolf-esque monster. Also, that comes, it goes more into the little bit of the final, the Gaslamp Fantasy direction, but I think we can make Clure work without bringing all those up. It's just a preternatural monster, essentially. In the first iteration of the game. So yeah, and where we want to make a lot of monsters like that, they'll rob you of sleep, they'll rob you of sanity, they'll rob you of your health, all that stuff. Well, by themselves they're not that impressive, but the horrible things they'll do to everything else, to the area, they are truly horrific monsters. So yeah, medicine are gonna be very important, either to keep yourself awake, to keep yourself from becoming fearful, to everything else. Be quick enough. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the meth-eating, opium-smoking associates who are doing it for to save the world. So I want to end up then with, like, what is the ideal steampunk role-playing game? Now, for my experience, it's cyberpunk in the past. So it's I treat it as a subgenre of science fiction, not of fantasy. That's one thing that makes Nightwatch stand out from 99% of all the other role-playing games that I've seen. I have not seen any other role-playing game that approaches it like this. So it really relies on the tropes of science fiction. That is one. It relies heavily on equipment. Again, you don't have magic in this system, so your weapons are very powerful in this game, especially when you're talking about automated weapons. They can do a lot of damage. The idea is also that the associates have to fight a lot of swarm monsters, which is also in spirit with the books, especially when you're talking about the vehicles and the casket girls and stuff like that. So yeah, prepare to grenade spawn, as it were, because that's gonna be part of the course. It's gonna have a heavy reliance on weapons, vehicles. Again, there's the preparation, of course, there's gonna be the research. So that is what I want to go with Nightwatch, and I think listening to the game so far, yeah, we succeeded in that, and I of course hope with that you will support it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are, according to you, the ideal steampunk games? Are there any other role-playing games you've heard of that approaches steampunk this way? And yeah, of course, I hope you will support it. Reactions to the latest book, The Casket Girls, is already very popular. We're working on new STLs. Of course, we're working on the fortune cards, which I will explain in a separate video. And yeah, Johan is working on more awesome illustrations. We already have great character illustrations. We're working on more monster illustrations, like the Frelin over here, which I just adore. And yeah, I hope that soon I'll have enough time to work on new videos and of course short stories and of course books, because I'm already working, preparing some more. I just haven't had the time, so I hope that I can balance my free time soon between, because I do want to make more games, especially expansions for Nightwatch, and so I am very curious what will happen when we go to Spiel by the end of the month. We also go to Spellenspectakel in the Netherlands, which is in Utrecht, on the first weekend of November. I'm talking to various other people. They all seem to be very enthusiastic about Nightwatch. I just hope they'll also look into more stuff, and I really need to find a proper representation for my books. So I can don't have to dabble as much in promotion as I'm doing now. But yeah, very exciting times. Also very stressful, barring my creativity at the moment. We're getting more activity on the Discord. So if you are interested in trying out Nightwatch, meet more people, go join us on Discord, go mingle with the community, and maybe your ideas for campaigns, weapons and stuff will make it into future iterations in the game. Speaking of which, for the campaign we're also doing get drawn in things. We are thinking about adding ID cards with a character portrait for you. Go check out the links, make a reservation, please. It's just $1 and you'll get more content if you back the Kickstarter. So with that, folks, as always, make things your way. Good night.